Hey, I'm Dan.
And I'm Jacob, and today we're tackling a very important question, which is, are all religions true?
It's a tough question. I think a lot of us come from a Christian background, and we may not know that many people from other religions. Jacob, do you think you're well equipped to answer the question, are all religions true?
I know I believe in Jesus, but it might help to hear how to explain that to someone else.
Yeah, let's check out this week's God story. I think we'll find the answers we're looking for.
Where do sharks go on summer vacation? Finland. Hi everyone, it's Jen, and it's great to be back with you today. Now, as you probably know by now, I am a Christ follower. But sometimes we can learn something cool from other religions. There is a leader in the Hindu religion whose name is Gandhi who has a cool quote that I really like. It says, "Live simply so that others may simply live." Today's God story has Paul in a place with people who practice a religion that is very different than the one he does. In fact, there are statues for a whole bunch of gods everywhere that he goes. But before we get into that, let's start with today's big idea. Are all religions true? The quick answer is no, but there are some good things in different religions, especially those that focus on helping people. That's good stuff. But to really tackle this question, let's start with something simple. We call ourselves Christians, and many people believe that Christianity is a religion. But see, we believe that Jesus actually came to earth to end religion. No. See, religion is a bunch of rules, rituals, and regulations to get us to God. But we believe that Jesus came to bring God to us. So being a Christian or a Christ follower isn't just a religion. It's our entire way of living, being, and doing. But are all religions true? Are they all saying basically the same thing? Well, no. The reality is that all religions think that their way is the right way, but because they're all different, they can't all be the right way. So what's the difference with Christianity? The difference is Jesus. So when we start to look at how Christ followers interacted with other religions, we can take a few notes from Paul. So let's jump into the God story and see what Paul did with the other religions around him. Paul was waiting for Silas and Timothy in Athens. He was very upset to see that the city was full of statues of gods. So part of the Greek religion is that there were a number of gods, and they had statues for all of these gods all over the city. So Paul went to the synagogue. This was the building kind of like a church where Jews and Greeks would go to worship God. Every day, Paul spoke with people in the market who wanted to talk about God. Some of the wise thinkers began to argue with him. Others said, he's talking about a God that we don't even know. That's because Paul was teaching them about Jesus. He told them that Jesus had risen from the dead. They were very interested in what he was saying, so they wanted to meet with him. While they were at the meeting, they said to Paul, "You have some very strange ideas, but we want to know what they mean." So then Paul said, "People of Athens, I see that you are very religious in every way. As I walked around, I looked carefully at the things you worship. I even found an altar with, 'To an unknown God' written on it. So you don't know what you are worshiping. Now I am going to tell you about this unknown God." So Paul started with something from their religion, from their culture, and actually complemented it as a way to point them towards Jesus. He said, "He is the God who made the world. He made everything in it. He is Lord of heaven and earth." If you are thinking, "Oh hey, I know that God," that's because you do. He is God, Father, Son, and Spirit. Paul goes on to say that God doesn't live in temples built by human hands. He's not served by people. He doesn't need anything. You see, the gods that they served in Athens relied heavily on people building temples and doing things for them, but not our God. Paul says that God serves his people. He gives them life and breath and everything that they need. Let's see what he says next. From one man, he made all the people of the world. Now they live all over the earth. He decided exactly when they should live, and he decided exactly where they should live. God did this so that people would seek him, and perhaps they would reach out for him and find him. They would find him even though he is not far from any of us. In him we live and move and exist. As some of your own poets have also said, we are his children. Yes, we are God's children, so we shouldn't think that God is made out of gold or silver or stone. He isn't a statue planned and made by clever people. So Paul is explaining here that the one true God isn't made out of gold or silver or stone, like the gods of the people of Athens. Paul goes on to say that before, when people didn't know the truth, God didn't judge them. But now that they know the truth, they should turn from sin. He told them about the death and resurrection of Jesus. Jesus is the difference, and when Jesus returns, he will be the judge. When they heard Paul talk about people being raised from the dead, some people actually made fun of him, but others said, "We want to hear more about this." And some people in Athens became Christ followers because of Paul's teaching. Paul wasn't concerned about people making fun of him, and he wasn't concerned about disagreeing with their religion, but he did work to connect their religion to what he knew was the truth. Paul didn't look down on others for having a different religion. He simply wanted to share the good news of Jesus, and he started with something that they were familiar with. So are all religions true? No. Do we get to be rude about it? Definitely not. Well, friends, it was so great hanging out with you again today. I will see you next time.
You know what blew me away? To hear how gentle and kind we should be to people who believe differently than us. And that the way to point them to Jesus is by showing them love.
Yeah, I think we can have great conversations with those people, but we should also remember we gotta be good listeners too.
Let's check in to see what our friends at the Campfire are doing this week and what kind of questions they have for Natalie and Jimmy. Watch this.
Okay guys, we're here at the fire and we've heard that you guys have like other questions. We're talking about why do people believe different things and what are the differences? So what are the questions that you guys have?
So are all religions saying the same thing?
Do they all believe the same thing? The answer would be no. To make it really, really simple, remember earlier today when you guys were wall climbing, you were trying to get to the very top of the wall, right? So a lot of religions say that God's at the top of the wall. They say you have to do lots of work and try really hard to get all the way up to God. But you know what Christianity says? What it is to follow Jesus means that Jesus is God who came down the wall to get to us. And that's completely revolutionary. Any other questions?
Why doesn't everybody believe in Jesus?
I think not everybody believes in Jesus because Jesus hasn't been explained or lived out well for everybody. Instead, unfortunately, some people have seen a very bad version of Jesus, a Jesus that's judgmental, a Jesus that doesn't make sense, a Jesus that's not loving to a neighbor, a friend, or somebody that you pass on the hall at your school. The real picture of Jesus that we have is that God is love, and Jesus is God made flesh. And so I think if everybody encountered that Jesus through us, if we showed God's love, if we looked more like Jesus, many more people would hear, and more people would definitely understand what God looks like.
What do I tell my friends that believe something different than me?
Yeah, I can take that one. Don't tell them anything. Show them. Show them. We don't need more people telling things and Christians or people who believe in Jesus finger wagging and Bible bashing. Instead, we need people that love God well and love their neighbors, their friends, people who are far from the popular group, like they love themselves. And so I would say that's the first thing. Don't make it your business to just tell friends what to believe. Show them. Show them God's love. Show them God's character. Show them what God looks like by serving them, caring for them, and sort of like wrapping your spiritual arms around them. Once that part is completed, then I would say there is a tell that we can do. And it's like Natalie said before, we can tell them that God actually came down the wall, came down here to meet with us, to care for us, to show us what life should actually look like. So again, answer one, don't tell them anything, show them. Then once you've shown them, explain, and explain Jesus.
Man, those were amazing questions that you guys had. And we are going to talk more next time about more questions that you have.
Hey Dan, what'd you think of that wall climbing?
I loved it. I wish I was on that rock wall right now. But I also love the conversations they're having around that campfire.
Absolutely. I love how Jimmy said, don't tell your friends what to believe, but show them God's love.
Totally. Let's break into our small groups and see what this looks like in our own lives.